So we'll start with the Baal Shem Tov Nigun, which goes like this.
Next time we gotta turn off the lights.
Oh yeah. Get some candles. That's a good idea. Some tea lights.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you everyone for coming. And Reb Nichol's not here, but a big thank you to the Rebbe for supporting and endorsing this type of shuir, which I think in a lot of ways it's historic to have a shuir like this in our community.
Yeah.
You know, we're not in Woodmere, we're not in Eish Kodesh. And so I think there's a unique opportunity to be able to invite people to experience Rebbe Nachman and Reb Noson. And for me, Reb Noson is very close to my heart. And Bezrat Hashem will have some context around who he was and what Likutey Halachos is. Some of you might know my cousin, Rav David Yishol Kalmis. He's been here in the past, and he's really my wife's cousin. And he was my introduction to Rebbe Nachman a few years ago, and by extension, my introduction to Reb Noson. And I remember, I think it was 3 years ago, I went to Woodmere for Reb Noson's Halula, which is the 10th of Tevis, which was last week. And they were selling this first printing of Likutey Halachos over there, and I think I remember being just drawn to the sefer. There was something about this sefer that was, I didn't know much about it. And if you're not in Breslov, or you're not in that world of Breslov, it's, you know, you might not even know who Reb Noson was, or who he is. Which I think is also a testimony to his humility. He was known for incredible humility. And we'll talk a little bit about who he was. And I started learning the Likutey Halachos, and was just overwhelmed by how deep and resonantial the Torahs were, how practical they were, how they spoke to Avodas Hashem, how there are moments when Bezrat Hashem will see that Reb Noson, almost like he starts talking to you, he starts just giving you chizuk. So we'll get there. First, we have an anonymous sponsor of the sushi, Laluli Nishmas, and a refuah shlema of Lior Chaya Bas Pero, and Besrat Hashem, it should be a schus for Reb Noson, schus Yagan Aleinu, Rebbe Nachman, schus Yagan Aleinu, and a refuah yeshuv for all those in Klal Yisrael, and Besrat Hashem. And please God, we'll for ourselves that our avodah should be influenced by what Reb Noson Nachman has to say, in a powerful way, in a beautiful way, in a real way. Reb Noson was born in 1780, and he really grew up in a home of misnagdim. He did not grow up Hasidic. His father was a very wealthy, businessman, and also a very dedicated student of Torah. And Reb Noson got married at 13 years old. And his father-in-law was a very, very big Rav David Tzvi Orbach. And even prior to meeting Rebbe Nachman, Reb Noson was a Talmid Chacham mamish. He was really a serious student. And his father-in-law was basically beginning to groom him for the role of Rav in the community. And there was a point where his father-in-law was thinking of Chassidus, and he saw that there was machlokas between a couple of the Chassidic masters. He's and he just totally dismissed it. He's became a staunch misnagdim, and he so much so I think from Reb Noson Maimon, who's a big mashpi in Breslov in Eretz Yisrael. I heard him say that he would give daily sort of talks about how the dangers of Chassidus. But Reb Noson, one of the, I think what I find so resonantial about him was that, and you sort of see this really come through in his biography from Rav Chaim Kramer. Rav Chaim Kramer is the one who basically founded Breslov Research Institute. All the svarim that you see there are really born out of his dedication to publishing them with his team. And he wrote, as you can see, a very large biography of Reb Noson. And you see in the biography how human Reb Noson was, how he was plagued by anxiety and obsessive thinking and a sense of futility. Even though he was a very accomplished scholar, he nevertheless was confounded by, is there more out there? And he had a chavrusa named Reb Lipa. And Reb Lipa came from a Hasidic home, and he would have talks with Reb Noson about, the value and the beauty of Chassidus. Reb Noson's no, and they'd have these conversations. I think it took about a year.
Before he was the Talmud Rav.
This is before his Talmud Rebbe Nachman. And you have to understand, Rebbe Nachman at this point, he was very young, and yet he was a very accomplished master and tzaddik, and controversy began to surround him, especially with this Bolti Zeta, who had a love for Rebbe Nachman, but has heard some bad rumors about him. Someone I forget exactly who, but someone or a group of people spoke lashon hara about him, and this Bolti Zeta basically believed that and made a vicious campaign against Rebbe Nachman, and it became very complicated for him. So Reb Noson was beginning to acquiesce to the arguments of his chavrusa Reb Lipa, and began to explore Chassidus, and he began to visit different tzaddikim. Most notably, I think Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, and there's a famous sort of Maisa, where and we're talking about a big tzaddik over here, and it was Malava Malka. And they were drawing, they were deciding who's going to get the bread for Malava Malka, and Reb Noson was chosen to go and get Malava Malka for the Talmidim and the Rebbe. And as he's on his way to get bagels, he's like, is this what I was made for, to get bagels, And you could see that, for us, we'd be dying, to serve a tzaddik in that way. But he had an acute sensitivity to the truth of truths, and he was on a deep search for that. And there's a story told where he was so one day he went to the shul and he started saying Tehillim, and he was just so broken because he's like, even now he's become a chassid, so to speak, but he's still not found what he's looking for, and he like falls asleep, like breaks down and falls asleep after saying a lot of Tehillim. As a dream. In the dream, he's ladder going basically, and he's climbing this ladder, and he keeps falling down. And he tries to climb up, and he goes a little bit higher, and he falls down again, and then finally he's like climbing. He sees that there's someone looking down at him, and saying, "Hey, climb, but hold on." It sounds better in Yiddish. I'm not going to say the Yiddish. It's in the book. You can look at it. And Rebbe Nachman, I forget exactly where he was, but eventually he moves to Breslov, and now that's much. And Rebbe Noson was in Nimrov, and that was about 50. It was like 9 miles or something like that. It was like a 2-hour wagon ride to Breslov from where he was. So Rebbe Nachman now became in the proximity of where he was. And now there are people going to see him. I believe maybe it was I think it was Reb Lipa actually. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was Reb Lipa that went to see him, and it was like Rosh Hashanah time. He came back and saw him doing slichos, and he was like so impressed. Or he saw one of the Hasidim come back and do slichos. Very impressed by that, and it was like there was something that these people were deeply impressed by when they were by Rebbe Nachman, and so. Eventually, Reb Noson decides he wants to go see him and meets with the Rebbe, and sort of the rest is history. And when Rebbe Nachman met Reb Noson, he said, "It's been a long time, but we've known each other for a long time, but it's been a while basically." He had a certain rule for Kodesh. He knew Reb Noson. He knew that there was something about Reb Noson that was very, very unique. And ultimately, all of the writings of Rebbe Nachman basically really are because of Reb Noson. He committed the Rebbe's Torahs to writing, and if it wasn't for Reb Noson, we certainly wouldn't have access to Reb Nachman. And they say is that the unique quality of Reb Noson was that he saw that the Torahs of Rebbe Nachman there was something eternal about them. There was something that were not just relevant for his door, but for later generations. And because he wasn't the first student of Rebbe Nachman, and he certainly wasn't the oldest student, and maybe some would even say he wasn't the most brilliant student, although he was brilliant, but he was the most committed. He was the most committed. And so what we have before us is a remarkable sefer, set of svarim, called Likutey Halachos. And the context around this sefer is as follows. Rebbe Nachman prescribed Reb Noson a certain learning seder, and he wanted them to have a seder in Shulchan Aruch, as well as he wanted them to have a seder in the writings of the Arizal and Kabbalah. And he, at a certain point, began to encourage Reb Noson to write his Chiddushei Torah. And so, what emerged was this. What Reb Noson did with Likutey Halachos was he took a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, and he goes through the whole Shulchan Aruch, and he builds a discourse around a halacha in the Shulchan Aruch vis-a-vis the lens of Rebbe Nachman's Torah. So Likutey Halachos is like simultaneously a beauty in and of itself, but it's also a perush on Likutey Moran, as we'll come to see.
So it's Reb Noson's own chidushim, but based on Reb Nachman's Torah?
Exactly.
So this is like really his work. But
Oh yeah. Just give you.
it's not like he's just taking Rebbe Nachman's Torah and then just
No. That's like Likutey Moran. He transcribed many of the Torahs in Likutey Moran. This is Reb Noson's own, his own project, so to speak. And they say this is the edition that you see here. Rav Kramer said, I believe that when this project is done, in this English edition, it'll be 50 to 60 volumes. The Likutey Moran that BRI put out was 15 volumes, I believe. This is a massive work. This is in Hebrew, it's 8 volumes, and it was Reb Noson wrote these discourses over 40 years. 550 discourses, and that's not even all the discourses. We lost some of them, unfortunately. We weren't zocheh to those. So it's just a massive, and some discourses are as short as a page, and some of them can go 65 pages long in the original Hebrew. So it's really extensive, and so what he does in these Torahs is he'll base it off of the Halachah and Shulchan Aruch, and he'll posture it in the context of a certain Torah in Likutey Moran. But then from there, he might go all over the place. He might talk about Hagim, and he might talk about the Parsha of the week. He'll talk about there's a key idea in Chassidus called a Bechina, which basically means that there are two ideas that are conceptually connected to each other. So like we'll see examples of these in the text itself. But I think for me personally, the Likutey Halachos is a sefer about how to live, how to be a human being in this world. And Reb Noson, there's no aspect of human experience that Reb Noson doesn't shy away from. And as we'll come to see, is that he's speaking to us. He's speaking to us in terms of how we can increase the quality of our avodas Hashem, how we can transform our thinking, how we can stand up to the various challenges that we confront. You know, there's in the discourse I'm learning personally, there's a moment where Reb Noson slips into this. It's just as if he's putting his arm around you and he's saying, you know, listen, my friend, you have to know, you have to be strong. You have to be a gibor chayil. You have to stand up to the bilbulim outside of you and the bilbulim inside of you, and all the different difficult thoughts that confound you at every moment of every day. And you're just like, oh my gosh, wow. And you feel incredible chizuk. And he was the ultimate mechadzik with Noson. Any questions so far? We're all on this. We're good. All right. Let's start. We'll open it up. Halachah Alef.
What did you say is the ultimate mechazik?
He's the ultimate mechazik, meaning he's the ultimate one to give you strength when you're down. There's a story where I'm trying to remember the exact Maisa. But basically, Rebbe Nachman was suggesting, or maybe he said explicitly, that I think he said it. He didn't say explicitly, but basically what came out was that he was saying that Rebbe Noson is lacking in Amunah. Rebbe Noson's like, what do you mean I'm lacking in Amunah? I'm devoted my whole life to Torah, mitzvahs, And Nach said, it's true, but what you lack is Amunah in yourself. And what you'll find is that that's going to be a big, big Indian. The idea of leaving yourself. And that was the lesson that Reb Noson learned. He learned as a student of Rebbe Nachman, and Bezrat Hashem will also tap into that and believe in ourselves more and more. Here we go. So this is Halachah Alech, based on the first Halachah and Shulchan Aruch. And as we know, Yizgaber ka'ari la'amud b'boker la'avodas borei, shehu ma'ora shachar. A person, when he wakes up in the morning, has to wake up like a lion to serve his Creator. He wakes up the dawn. And the Ramah says, Shavisi Hashem l'neged tamid, zeklal gala b'torah. You have to place Hashem before you always, and this is a klal gala b'torah. Now, this Os Aleph is going to be a summary of the Torah from Rebbe Nachman. And this first halacha is based on Torah Reish Pei Beis 282, which is a famous teaching in the Likutey Moran called the Zamra. And the Zamra is the idea of finding your good points. And so we'll see how Reb Noson works with this. And then Os Beis is going to be him beginning his actual discourse. So it says like this: Ki isa b'divrei Rabbeinu Zal. I might cry, by the way. Hopefully it'll be okay. Ki isa b'divrei Rabbeinu Zal. Kisha Adam Mazchil lechapesh atzmo. It's brought there by Rabbeinu that when a person begins to search within himself, the ro'eh shu rechok ma'od me'Hashem Yisbrach, and he sees that he is very far from Hashem. when I was thinking about this discourse, I was trying to be medayik in the lashon here. It's ma'od. He's very far from Hashem. Fumale chotoim b'chamim arba, and he's just filled with sins and blemishes. And pay attention to this lashon right here. V'nidma lo shu rachok mitov, and it appears to him that he's far from good. Not that he's far from good. It appears to him. And one of the key ideas we'll discover is Rebbe Nachman speaks a lot about imagination. What he calls the koach hamedameh, the power of your imagination. And they say that by Rebbe Nachman that when they asked them when they ask you, what did you get from me? Tell them that you got pure imaginations. And this is an important point to just spend some time with, because it's our minds in which we, of course, experience reality, and the stories that we tell ourselves, the belief systems that we have. There's reality, and there's how we interpret reality. And Rebbe Nachman is trying to purify that capacity within us to interpret our reality. We all know that, and he says in a different discourse, that the quality of our difficulty and suffering is oftentimes just the basic belief systems that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves. Like, life never works out for me. It's okay, life never going to work out for you. Every bump of the road becomes a difficulty, as opposed to, wow, everything is a growth opportunity. And so, traffic, you stub your toe, whatever iteration of difficulty you might find, it hits you in the context of the narrative that you are saying. So this lashon of nidman lo shu rachok matov is that we're in the world of his mind, we're in the world of his imagination, that he believes that he's just so far from good, that he's hopeless. Azay hu tzarich, and this is key. Azay hu tzarich lekabesh levakish lensa ba'atzma ezatov. It's at that point, and this is almost a counterintuitive point, because when a person is steeped in his negativity and his sins, the next move, it doesn't seem to be, let me find my good point. It's like, let me find more bad points. But Rebbe Nachman is saying, at that counterintuitive moment within yourself, that you have to actually search and discover and excavate within you that good point. And this is awesome. Because how is it possible he didn't do any good in his life? So what creates the atmosphere for searching for the good? Because it can't be that you never did anything good. I have a client I'm working with, and with this person, it's like very hard for them to. It's almost like they have like a glaze over their eyes. They can't fathom that they have good inside of themselves. They're so clenched in their belief that there's just nothing good about them. But Rebbe Nachman is coming to say, how's it possible that you never did any good? And that question opens us up to the possibility of course there's good. I just have to excavate. I just have to dig deep.
So he's not saying that the answer is to do good. It sounds like before that, you have to find that you've already done good.
Precisely.
You already are good.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. Is that point clear for everyone? We're going to see something linguistically, which Joy Roosevelt points out in the shuir on Rebbe Nachman. It's very powerful. We'll say the sentence, and then we'll see why it's powerful. Ba'af, and even shuroe shegam ato sha'asahu male b'tzaim, and even if he sees that as well, that little good that he did is still filled with blemishes. Kimo or pisolas arbe, and it's just it's mixed up with pisolas, with a lot of negativity, and it's not perfect. Afal pikain, nevertheless, it's impossible that there's not this nikuda tova. And so you're going to see this pattern in the language oftentimes. Va'af, and even, and then afal pikain, nevertheless. So even though I look at myself and I have so many mistakes and so many sins and all sorts of stuff. Nevertheless, I have to be mavakesh within myself, and search and excavate, and to find that good point. And so he searches and he finds within himself that good. And even the good itself seems to be blemished. And this is the second time he's doing this. Nevertheless, you still have to look for that good. So even if you find a good point, and you're like, but my intentions were bad, I wasn't, my kavanah wasn't 100%, I didn't do it right. He says, nevertheless, you have to dig deep within that, and to still find the good. And so he searches and he finds further good points. And through this, he judges himself favorably. He finds within himself still Nekuda Tovos. You see this lesson a lot. Even though he did what he done, and he's blemished what he's blemished. Through this, he emerges in truth, and he judges himself from chova, and he enters in. He leaves from the side of chova, and he enters b'chavschus be'emes. That is, yichol lischos b'tshuva. He's able to actually do tshuva. I heard Reb Joy Rosenfeld talk about this nekuda of this, when Reb Noson is talking about where a person has fallen, it's relative to every one of us. Even though a person's done what he's done, or he's blemished what he's blemished, nevertheless, from that place, wherever you are, you find that point of good. And it's important to acknowledge, I say this to the patients I work with at the hospital, the people that I work with, these are people that are in so many ways at the highest level of suffering. I think I had like 3 or 4 patients recently, all had sexual trauma as a child. We're dealing with serious stuff. And so when I get to a nursing group and I have to somehow share something with them that will hopefully help them on their journey towards recovery and healing, for me it's with the awareness of I can't even begin to fathom what these people have gone through. And so, when we talk about these ideas, it's with great sensitivity, because it's beautiful in theory, and then there's our life in the moment. I was thinking about this Torah today because I'll just be honest with you, I went through a kufa of mochen dekatnus, serious mochen dekatnus, and I was trying to practice this Torah today, finding the Nekuda Tovos. Then when you're well, whatever you're on, it's difficult. And it's not only just finding the point, you have to allow the point to fill your body. You have to be misbonen on the thought, and you have to give yourself permission to actually feel the light that good. What I love also about Torah is that it's a nekuda tova. It's a point of good. It's not like you have to overhaul your life. He's just asking you to think about a fragment of good within you. I did open the door to that point. Or I told the joke to my wife and she laughed. Or she pretended to laugh, whatever. Doesn't matter which one.
also see an example of that, and I think Parshas Noah, where it's asked why Hashem would be willing to create a world, knowing how many people are going to sin in the first place, to a point where he designed to wipe it out. And it's almost like searching for a diamond in coal. So the entire world, even all the sins that Hashem is going to endure us committing, are worth it for the good that occurs throughout it.
Wow.
So if he can look at that through that lens for this entire world, surely we can do that with our own lives.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly the point. And this, what you're saying, what's your name again? I'm so sorry. Binyamin. What's your name? Mordechai? Okay. Aaron. Thanks for being here. Yeah. We're gonna see this later on in a couple pages where Reb Noson is gonna bring a source text that I think it's Tehillim, where he's gonna this notion of even the good point might appear black because it's surrounded by all this seeming negativity, and it's like even still that point in of itself is beautiful and it shines and it's exactly what you're saying to be it's that point we're going to see later on as well, that point of good he's going to call elokus, he's going to call godliness, and so you're connecting to the godliness inside of you vis-a-vis that good point, because Hashem is good, Hashem is tov. So if you're discovering the tov inside of you, you're discovering the elokus inside of you. And what's important to see where we're holding right now, because we're going to see like this formula begin to build. It's going to be like, you have to find the Nekuda Tova, and when you're zochet to finding the Nekuda Tova, you'll judge yourself favorably, and then you'll have tshuva. And my cousin Rav David Yisrael talks about this, that whenever a person assesses themselves, a lot of times we automatically go right sort of for the critical point, all the areas that you're messing up in. And he says that's not right to do. You have to first anchor yourself in the good, your strengths, what you're doing well, and from that vantage point that allows you to actually see clearly, as opposed to the other way where it's like your perception is actually skewed based on the negativity. Because we're going to see a relationship between, and Rebbe Nachman brings this in a different Torah, in Torah 10, Tes and Tinyana, in the second volume of Likutey Halachos, where he points out the relationship between Yishuv Das and joy, Yishuv Das and Simcha. It's like, okay, well, how do I have Simcha? Oh, you have to find the Nekuda Tovos. And so, when you actually have more Simcha in your life, you're able to have that quality of Yishuv Das, and then look at your life more from a healthier vantage point. Like when I'm looking at the doctor's notes on patients, and it's like, it never says like, the patient is like really depressed and sad, they're having ruminating thoughts, they have racing thoughts, and now they're seeing their life really clearly. It never says that. Because the negativity is they're anchored in the negativity. So it's also a little bit more complex than that, because there's also neurobiology and brain chemistry and all sorts of things that affect, the way the person is. But suffice it to say, it never ends with like, because of the negativity that they are tapped into, they're seeing life more clearly now. It's like it's always they're not seeing life clearly. They're judging themselves severely, and when they judge themselves severely, it doesn't give them the oxygen space to actually move forward in a positive way. So this is a practical point for us in the sense of if you're going to do a cheshbon and nefesh, for example, you want to do tshuva, and this is like a little bit counterintuitive. We want to actually begin with the positive. Okay, what's going well? What's going right? Does that point make sense? All right.
So the examples you gave of your patients and like that it's like their situation. It's not like they were like sinners. But I also like that example like that's how when I'm feeling down, it's because of like those how I feel I'm in the situation that I'm in. I'm not like holier people, like Reb Noson are like, oh, I sinned, that's why he feels bad. But like, it seems like we're not even on that level. We're like just we're down because of the situation we're in. So I guess like what's like the connection there, and how do we like bring that back to like this? Do you get what I'm saying? I guess just the like there's either you're a sinner or you're like your situation is bad.
Mm.
So, I don't know. For like me, it's probably like
Yeah.
the situation's bad, not like, oh,
You did something wrong.
I like forgot to say Al Mechia, like you know. Also, like,
Yeah.
okay, there are things that I want to do tshuva for, and but I would say the majority of me feeling bad is based on
Situation.
like, okay, Hashem didn't give me, give me
Mm.
this deal didn't go through, or
Mm.
this girl didn't work out, this whatever didn't work,
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
but it seems like like, so yeah, that's
You're saying because what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing the distinction that you're making is that some people there, it's not that they did anything wrong per se. Situationally,
it's like
just
external,
it's external to yourself, right?
and that's the example you also gave, which I think like makes sense. Like that's
Right.
that's why people feel
Right.
down.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts? Not to put you on the spot.
I mean, I guess like when you're feeling down, you're more likely to sin, and when you're feeling up, then you're
Ah.
more likely to do mitzvahs and
Oh, nice.
serve Hashem. But so why doesn't Reb Noson, like why does Reb Noson go straight to like
Not situational,
yeah,
and you go straight to like
yeah,
your
it's not like oh my gosh, like the situation I'm in is
yeah.
terrible, I feel small.
Right. The truth is, I don't know. That's the honest answer. But I think the point still stands that because even situationally, the situation in some ways might be like there are things that are constitutionally bad, like I guess bad, like real, like someone, someone's killed. Right? Like okay, that's a bad situation. But for us, for the most part, it could be that certain situations are neutral, and then depending upon our perspective on the situation, it might be might approach it from a positive way. We might approach it from a less positive way. Like if you're in traffic, for example, traffic might be maybe a neutral situation, and I might look at that as a real annoyance, or I might look at that as I can listen to the podcast now, or I can call my mom, or something like that. So it could be an opportunity to learn to find the good in the situation.
And others as well.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that. We're going to say that explicitly soon.
Advisors on that as well. You're supposed to say a blessing for the good that has an aspect of bad and the bad that has an aspect of good. So whether you're looking at it situationally, whether you're analyzing your own life and saying, wow, I feel pretty down for these things that are external to myself, maybe a missing of expectations, which your expectations are really drive for reality. You
Nice.
still have that opportunity to be incredibly grateful for the way that things are. Somebody much wiser than me advised me just humble while we were on the walk that everything Hashem does is tenuma, and that at any point in time, regardless of what happens, whether it's something good or whether it's something bad, the opportunity that's in front of you, you're supposed to release that Hashem's the one who knows what's best for you, for everyone around you, whether it's in the case of Chas v'Shalom, somebody passing, or whether it's in the case of a deal not going through. For whatever reason, you need to experience this in this particular area, and it's what's best for you. So there's bracha on that, whether it's good or bad, because you're supposed to see the blessing as a blessing, even if it appears as a curse, and even in something that appears as a curse, you have to wonder or just release this is happening for its best possible reason. And things that appear like blessings, you should wonder if they could be curses too. Because if you misuse a blessing, then it won't become.
Nice.
Also, Bazan would see the good points in yourself. If you're around seeing good points in yourself, you have to reinforce those good points, right? If you're not getting it externally, you have to have that built up internally.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Is that somewhat satisfying, or needs more support there? Or just have to leave his phone on it?
Think about it later.
Think about it.
It also might
So-
come up, and it's only been a few sentences. You might find the answer later in the...
Yeah. There's certainly going to be an idea of doing. This is in the note in one of my printings of that my cousin drew out, which was doing tshuva on your perceptions of reality. So like I have a certain perception of reality right now, and then it could be that's the, creating a certain quality of discomfort in my relationship to what's going on, and then you do a tshuva on that perception, and now you're able to see that in a deeper way. So, okay. Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue next week. And, shkoyach everyone for coming.